All right, today I'm with the Godfather, Craig Ballantyne, Mr. Reinvention. He's done so much coming into the fitness industry with his turbulence training, then early to rise, perfect day formula. What else is Craig up to? That's what we want to know. He's always doing big things, and thanks for being on my show. Again, pumped to talk to you.
Hey, this is going to be so much fun.
Yes. To kick things off, what is a quote or a mantra that fires you up?
Oh, well, it's actually a quote from me. So it's action beats anxiety, motion beats meditation, and work beats worry. That quote is in my new book, Unstoppable, like 10 times. And every time I share it with people, they're like, yes, that hits me hard.
That is amazing. Totally agree with all three of those. And one thing that you do is you put a lot of effort and time in your books and your products and your services. So I'm super curious, what inspired your new book, Unstoppable?
Well, Unstoppable came out of the anxiety attacks that I had back in 2006 that then led me to creating the structure that allowed me to then go and start coaching other entrepreneurs who were kind of struggling with the same thing. And then it's all just the way that I'm wired, is to focus on vision and help people put together step-by-step blueprints. So I just like order in my world, and it inspired me to go and help other people put order in their world because they struggle without it.
I love that. It's super important. And your whole philosophy on order, having structure, discipline that opens up more freedom, you really encapsulate that in your perfect day formula, your workshops, your whole message with that. And I feel like in a lot of ways, it's given a foundation and a platform. So this book is built for a different audience. Right.
Yeah, it's built for a little higher level entrepreneur. And so, perfect day formula for anybody. Anybody can use it. Anybody can get more out of their day using the perfect day formula. And then you elevate to the next level. And I mean, really, it's for anybody that has a business at all, but generally for somebody doing $500,000, $1 million or more, who's like kind of stuck and wants to go to the next level and build that empire, as Bedros and I say. So it really helps people finally start building actual plans, because a lot of people can get pretty far just on hard work and running your head through a wall. But eventually you have to get a whole lot more clarity on where you want to go in terms of building an empire, building a team. And we really walk through that. But at the same time, we also want to get some fast wins. So I also teach you, like, hey, here's what we need to figure out for you to do in the next 24 hours, 72 hours, 7 days. That part of the planning as well. We're not just looking way into the future. We're actually giving you action steps to move ahead really fast. But then also it helps you overcome what I call entrepreneurial anxiety. So there are some chapters in there about dealing with stress, dealing with everything as a business owner. So I really shouldn't label it as something that's only for people that have a 7-figure business, because anybody, even if you have like a $100 a week, lemonade stand and you got some stress from it, you'll definitely get benefits from the book.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing I must say that I'm quite fascinated with you is how much you reinvent yourself, but how much you grow just as a person, a coach, a performer. I look back on the last podcast we did, it's about a year ago, and just how you show up. I've seen you at Masterminds, public speaking, and you're taking your whole performance to the next level.
Yeah. And I think I'll just say there, like, anything is a learnable skill. So I don't, before this call, I was kind of like, man, I would just love to read a book right now. But I'm going to bring the energy on this call because this is what I committed to doing. So I make promises, and I make promises that are outside of my comfort zone. And then I figure out how to deliver on that. And, one thing that one of the many things that Tim Grover has written about and said is that pressure is a privilege. And so to be put in situations where you have to leap outside of your comfort zone is a great privilege. And so you have to play up to that level. And so anybody that is struggling with anything, whether it is public speaking, whether it is socializing in groups, whether it is, transforming your own body, everything is possible. Everything is possible. And you just have to go and find someone who's been there and done that, get the mentorship, get the guide, get the step-by-step, and get the accountability to do it. And then you will find a way to show up and move mountains in your life. And fortunately, I'm surrounded by a lot of great guys like you and Vince and John Romanello and Jason Capital and Bedros Keuilian and Joel Marion. And I mean, like, these guys are my friends, and I don't want to let you guys down. And so when I say, hey, listen, and I'm going to get better at this because I see all you guys improving, man, then I have to follow through. So that's really key.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. And speaking of Vince, we were recently on his Mastermind about a month ago, and he gave such a powerful presentation. He covered a lot of great stuff. In fact, it's been like my most productive 30 days. Because
awesome.
Yes, admittingly, you know, I read your book, The Perfect Day Formula, went through the kit, went through the whole process, but it was seeing you in person, and it was like your message just like really penetrated my subconscious mind, and I was like, oh, I need to get my shit together, you know? And I can see myself, you know, an action taker, I'm pretty productive, but just a few things you said changed the game for me.
Which ones were a real game changer for you?
You know, my entire life, I've been very shy, and I called myself an introvert. And then your talk, I questioned, like, is that label serving me, you know?
Right.
Because on podcasts, on videos, on my own seminars, I'm super extroverted. And then oftentimes, if I go to a seminar, I kind of keep to myself, and I'm not going to the networking parties. Oh, we're all going to dinner and drinks. I'm like, cool, I'll show my hotel room. You know, that was a label that I told myself. But I'm like, am I really an introvert, or is that an excuse not to get uncomfortable?
Right. Right. Yeah. I mean, that's the same as me. And, you know, for everybody listening, you know, we did this exercise at Vince's Mastermind where I said, you know, write down all the things that you're labeling yourself, whether you can label yourself as the person who's always late, right? Oh, I'm always late.
Yeah.
Or, you know, I can never lose the last 5 pounds, or you know, I'm not a good public speaker. If you say that, you're going to believe it for your entire life. But if you challenge yourself on it, you say, you know what? Let me try and be extroverted. Let me try and be on time. Let me dedicate the next 30 days to never being late. Let me dedicate, you know, the next year to doing a public speaking event every month, or go to Toastmasters or something. And all of a sudden you find out, holy cow, I can do this. I can do this. And it totally changes your mindset. Like, if I can do this, think of all the other things that I can do. So please, 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 everybody, don't label yourself, you know, without giving it a challenge. That's for sure.
Yes. Speaking of challenges, like over the past year, calling myself an introvert, or I'm not that funny, I started doing stand-up comedy, and that's been a game changer. Yeah. You know, because the first time I ever did it was scared out of my mind. I'm like, oh, I'm going to go up there, it's going to be crickets, because as you know, stand-up comedy is one of the hardest ways to perform.
I was just going to say, it is one of the hardest things you can do. Improv's easier.
Yes. Often at a seminar, if you're halfway decent, you're going to get an applause. You know, you're not going to get any boos. But if you do stand up and no one applauses, you get crickets. It's embarrassing.
Yeah.
You know? But again, it was like, is that label true? And I did it. It was a phenomenal experience. I did it again, and it got easier. And like anything in life, it's like you take away the label, and next thing you know, you find a new superpower.
Yeah, and I would add, like you said, you did it again, and so it's really, you know, take away the label is one thing, but then it's just, you know, like you can't just read a book about dentistry. You have to go and, you know, do dentistry to get better at it. And it's the same with stand-up comedy. You did it again, and it's getting the reps, time under tension. And the more that you can do something, the more that you can, you know, be in group settings, the less of an introvert you're going to be. You're going to learn some strategies. And in an often case, that's what it is, you know, whether it's me, you know, getting hyped up before I do a podcast interview, or, you know, making sure that you have a opening line for when you're at an event, or make sure you go to some events at first with a partner who's extroverted so that they can start some conversations. Listen, we can all build in these crutches and shortcuts that will make things easier at first until we become more confident over time. Speaking of, I saw you recently did karaoke. For the first time ever, yeah. And it's funny, my man. I thought that you actually sang along with the song. I didn't know that you were the only person singing. And so they started the song, and then, you know, the words go purple, and I didn't start singing because I'm like, I thought Bon Jovi was singing along with me. I was such a dummy. I was so naive. I didn't know anything about it. And then they told me, no, it's just you. And then they gave me a second shot at it. And I think I actually did a pretty good job. I really enjoyed it, to be honest with you. Yeah, I mean, most importantly, you did at a live event, like in front of, you know, it's like a couple hundred people. So, you know, funny that you should mention the stand-up comedy. So when I speak at my event, so this was at my own event, we had, you know, 360 people there was the exact count. And at night we have round tables. So it's not like just go have dinner and go on your own. We have the seminar during the day and then round tables at night. And then we have a social time after. And one of my big messages is always leap outside of your comfort zone, not step outside, but leap outside of your comfort zone. And so I was like, I've never done karaoke. And obviously this, doing it in front of a couple hundred people would be the best time to do it for the first time. And so I did it. And next year, I'm pretty sure we're going to do stand-up comedy. So I'm going to push myself to do stand-up comedy next year. Get a couple other guys like Jay Ferrugia does it regularly. And this guy, Marcus Martinez, big in the kettlebell world, he does it regularly as well. So we'll get a couple guys and we'll do a stand-up comedy night at a marketing event and really push our envelopes,
Yeah, that's amazing and very inspirational for a lot of people that are listening. I talk about it a lot. I'm not doing stand-up to become a comedian, but I want to become the best communicator possible. Sure. And if I got the reins, rather than just being Mr. Inspiration or a teacher, I can tell jokes, do karaoke, freestyle rap. That information becomes more effective because I'm not just speaking from one range.
Well, I think one of the greatest things from stand-up comedy is the transition between stories. And so I will watch Louis C.K. I will watch Dave Chappelle. Those are kind of the guys that I resonate with most. And just to see them transition, not that I resonate with Louis C.K. Let's just not that stuff, but I like his comedy. Yeah. And so to see how he goes from this story to the next story, I think that's really important for me as a speaker, because I'm less like when I started out speaking way back when I did my first fitness business summit, it was point after point after fact after fact after fact. And I was worried about forgetting a fact. And, it was all this stuff. And now it's more about here's the story that shows how the fact can be used and how you can do it too. And then I want to transition into the next story. But I also study pastors on YouTube because you want to have that fired up energy, inspiration, and motivation. I'm not throwing religious stuff in there, but you want to have that tonality, that pitch, that pace. And so I'm looking for every edge in order to keep people engaged, but also teach them and have them walk away going, man, I learned something and it was awesome and I was entertained and I want to come back to this, especially when I have my own events, because it's not just like speaking at another person's event where you just speak and you do a good job. You got to, if you're running your own event, you got to worry about bringing people back the next year.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And speaking upon that, one thing I have to give you a lot of credit for are your Instagram stories, because man, you bring a fire there. You keep me super engaged. And in fact, your stories are so good that I just listened to a few of them. And I just bought your Instagram story selling system, because that's how effective it is. And in a lot of ways, like people that watch your Instagram stories, you have a way of taking such great content, but making it digestible and powerful and very potent.
Yeah. And so here's the whole trick to my Instagram stories. And so people, for those listeners who don't know what we're talking about, is that, when you go to Instagram, you can make stories and those are the red circles at the top. And most people they'll just put up one slide at a time and it won't connect with the next. But what I realized was, AJ, it was just over a year ago. I was in an airport in Florida and I'd been playing around with Instagram for a while. And I had this aha moment where I'm like, oh my gosh, Instagram stories are the new email. And so all I did was I just took this philosophy that I'm going to take how I would write an email and put it into an Instagram story. And by doing that, what I did, when I wrote an email, it was always, subject line was so important, then a little personal story, then teach a tip and earn the right to make a call to action. And I thought, okay, well, what if I could do this in like 45 seconds, 60 seconds, or 90 seconds in an Instagram story that was all back to back to back? And that's what I started doing over a year ago. And it's worked gangbusters for me. It's worked so well for trainers who want to get online clients. I have people selling diamond rings using it. I have people selling Facebook advertising, programs, digital marketers use it. And
even people with small followings, like 1,000, 2,000 people. Yeah.
Yeah. I've got one guy he came to my workshop, my business workshop in September, I think, and started using my Instagram course around then. And he has 31 online clients since then by making daily stories. And he lives in a small town and he has about 1,300 followers. It's crazy.
Yeah, no, I highly recommend it. I invested myself, and what you share in there is revolutionary, because for me personally, I was having a lot of followers, but I was not converting as well. Sure. And I was realizing how dumb some of my posts were, because you have a great section where you talk about the importance of having an effective post, you know? And
Yeah.
I was like, oh, some of this stuff is just me showing off, you know? I need to teach more and inspire and have stronger call to actions.
Yeah, I mean, it's so simple. You know, with your main post, just make sure they're valuable. And if they're not valuable to the other person, then you shouldn't post it. And then for your stories, just make sure you show that you know what you're talking about, and then make a call to action. Most people on Instagram, they have a lot of followers, but they never mention that, you know, what they do. And so a lot of people have these followers, and the followers are probably like, I like this person, but I really don't have any clue what they do here. And then all of a sudden I teach them to go and make a call to action or an offer. And the next thing you know, they're making a whole bunch of money. And I have so many online coaches that have bought my program on one day and made $1,000 or $1,500 the next day, literally in 24 hours, you know, tripling the investment in the program simply that fast because
Asking
they
for the sale.
finally made a call to action.
Yes. Absolutely, absolutely. And you're always on the forefront of just the changes in the marketing scene, especially looking at social media. And
well, I will say that I do appreciate that compliment, but I didn't have an iPhone until 2017. So I'm not always on the, I was still using a BlackBerry.
Yes, no, but you know, just hearing a lot of your philosophies on kind of just even how email is becoming, you know, more obsolete, Instagram, social media, manufacturing celebrity, those instances. And people nowadays, you know, there's all these new social medias that are coming out, virtual reality, AI. I mean, there's so much great technology that's coming out. But if a person wants to, let's say, succeed in this world that we live in, where we're so hyper connected over the next 10 years, what do you feel are some basic skill sets to continually rise to the top of the industry?
Storytelling, man. Storytelling. Because it doesn't matter, like, if you're telling a story in email, if you're telling a story on video, if you're telling a story in virtual reality, stories are always going to win. And, you know, Roman talks about this all the time, and Jason Capital talks about this all the time. And we need to get away from being what I used to be, which is the fact vomiter. You know, I mean, it's going to vomit a whole bunch of facts on you all day long. And it gets boring, you know, it gets boring, gets tiresome. It's like, how much information could I possibly take away here? But when you have somebody who can come along and weave a teaching point into a story, that's what we remember. That's, you know, especially one that can tug at the heartstrings, whether it's a hero's journey of somebody or whether it's just a story about how you discovered something. Man, that's what people want. They want to be infotained, you know, to steal a word from Dan Kennedy and Matt Fury from back in the day. Infotainment, if you can do that, man, it's going to be a game changer because it applies to every medium.
Yeah, I totally agree. And infotainment, that's one of my favorite words. You know, for the past 5 years, I've been just knee deep in becoming the best storyteller I could be. Reading books about it, screenwriting, just understanding, you know, watching great stories on video. How do I stay so captivated? You know, this person has me watching this story for like an hour, and the whole time you're just taken in his trance.
Yeah, absolutely. So do you know Sean Stevenson, the 3-foot giant?
Oh yeah, I love him.
Yeah, so he has, I've seen him speak many times. I'm in Genius Network with him, and you know, I've done coaching with him, and he has this great line about, like, his whole idea about speaking and storytelling is wrapped up in make them laugh, make them cry, change their lives. And you can do that in as little as a 3-minute, 5-minute story, but just make somebody laugh, you know, get them rapport with you, and then make them cry through a powerful story where they're inspired and they're like, wow, and change their lives through some message. And again, if the better of a storyteller you are, you can do that in a short amount of time. And if you do that in every single one of your presentations, in every single one of your, maybe you're probably not going to do that in every single one of your Instagram stories, but you know, in your presentations, you need to be able to do this to really move people. And man, that's why he's so good.
I totally agree. And I was just thinking about, the whole element that we have so much information, we're drowning in information, and, you know, the people that can tell stories, that can take people on an emotional roller coaster and inspire them into action are the ones that are going to be the transformers. And
yeah, absolutely. And, you know, like if you watch a few TED Talks, you know, there seems to be like some formula for the TED Talk where there's a story involved and all that stuff. And so, you know, if people are struggling of where do I go and learn how to tell stories, you know, that would be one place to be. Go and watch some of the best TED Talks. Also, you know, check out some There's some story selling stuff by this Story Brand by Donald Miller is a book that would be very helpful. And you just need to learn how to craft a story and think about some of your favorite stories and how they go through that, hero's journey thing. And then from there, try and build some, especially around your success stories, your case studies, your testimonials. You want to build a strong hero's journey story around them that you can use in your marketing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And talking about the 25K group, I was in that for a few years. And one of the highlights of that entire mastermind is the annual event where you have like the best of the best coming in doing 10-minute talks.
Yeah.
And it's fascinating to me to see how someone could craft a 10-minute talk and captivate, tell a story, emotionally move people. And
it really was the best thing, because so many seminars should just have more 10-minute talks and not
totally agree.
Hour-long presentations from people that turn a 10-minute talk into an hour-long presentation.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And in a sense, like social media is taking that trend, with with Twitter, with the short characters, Instagram stories. I mean, most people don't have time to watch a 30-minute video on their social media.
No, but they do have time to watch 30 different 1-minute videos.
Well said. Well said. Absolutely. And this is something I was always curious about. Let's say you have a world-class writer like Stephen King, who could persuade with the written word. Then you have Tony Robbins, who could get on video and captivate thousands of people. Do you feel it's better if someone stays within their skill set and just write books, only speak on video?
Well, I think that you should probably focus your business efforts on it. But much like how you're doing the stand-up comedy, we all need to be learning new skills all the time. And so for someone who's really just a writer, there's not going to be any negatives to you learning some public speaking. Now, if it's not a big part of your business, you shouldn't put 10 hours a week into it, but doing some public speaking to get the understanding of what it's like, to be on stage and see people's responses to stuff is very, very valuable. And one of the things that I did, AJ, with my Perfect Day Formula book, I did a promotion tour, like I like to say, where I did 275 podcast interviews. And I was able to craft a really good on-stage presentation from the podcast interviews that I did, because I could tell where I was speaking too long, where I spent too much time on a story. I worked this one joke like 20 times until I finally got it to really hit. And then I was able to use that in my stage presentations. And so it was only through the podcasts, which aren't a real major part of my business, that I was able to improve both my writing and my on-stage presentations. So certainly get some exposure to everything, but also understand where the money is made.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And this is something that I'll ask for both selfish reasons, but also fascination. We're both speaking at Jason Capital's High Status Summit.
Oh,
right?
Cool.
Phenomenal event. A lot of game changers there. It's got 1,000 people showing up. I'm curious, when you have like that level of magnitude and you have so many great speakers, do you have a certain type of preparation for that type of event? Or do you look at previous events on like certain things that you love talking about? Or I'm curious how you craft a talk of that magnitude.
Yeah. So with that one, I've been there so many times that I know that audience. But if I hadn't, I think that is a chance where I would go and be as me as I could possibly be, right? Because you are on stage with Frank Kern, Joel Marion, Bedros Keuilian, you. And so trying to be them is going to be a letdown for everybody. So it's like, you know what? I'm going to double down on Craig Ballantyne and be the best Craig Ballantyne. But so I'm not too worried about that one. But 2 days before that, I'm speaking at Ryan Moran. Do you know him?
Oh, yeah. Capitalism.com. Yeah.
So I'm speaking at that event. I know him very well, and really well. So, I mean, and I know that audience really well. So, I mean, I can do no wrong there. But at Ryan's, I'm going there because Joel introduced me to him, and Joel spoke highly of me. Ryan and I have never met in person. So I'm like, okay, I really, really want to do a great job here. So it's, research the audience and then just double and triple check with Ryan. Hey, what do you want me to say? What message do you want me to deliver? And that's the most important thing if I'm going to an unknown audience where I have to deliver. And my presentation is also going to kind of be out of, sync with everybody else's. Like I'm probably speaking on the perfect week formula, the stuff you saw me speak at Vince's, which everybody needs. But, it's going to be like, hey, here's how to make money. Here's how to make money. Here's how to make money. Here's the perfect week formula. It still fits, but it's different. And so I just need to really have that one dialed in and use. I learned this from my speaking coach, Joel Weldon. Did you meet Joel from?
Oh yeah, he's awesome. He's a fireball.
Yeah, he's something else. And so it's simply just research the marketplace, because I've spoken in front of financial advisors, and Joel was in the audience, and he was like, you should have maybe used like a couple of specific examples, a couple of terms that they used, just done a little bit more homework on them so they know you customized it for them, as opposed to it sounding like a presentation you could have gave to a bunch of teachers or a bunch of, janitors or whatever. Yeah. I mean, so that's the extra thing that I'll do for Ryan's event, because I haven't done that one before.
That is very powerful. And it goes for everyone listening as well. It's like, if you're speaking to different crowds, busy mothers, in a sense, you have the mindset, okay, if I'm a busy mom, what are my biggest issues? What are the pains I'm experiencing? What keeps me up at night? And cater everything towards your audience.
Yeah. And in that case, you also admit, especially like you and I would admit, like, hey, listen, I don't know all the struggles you go through, but I have talked to quite a few of you. And, I can't speak and say, hey, I know what it's like, to have 2 4-year-old kids puking on me in the middle of the night, when they only want their mommy and not daddy. And so I understand that you guys have a world of knowledge that's different than mine, but here's what I know has worked for women just like you. And so that way they go, oh, here's not some guy who's just talking down to me. No, okay, he's helped somebody else. And so now we go back to the storytelling, and we tell the story about someone that relates to them. And I guess that's another thing is you might customize all of your stories. If you're going to a financial group, you're going to say, okay, I'm going to think of all the financial advisors I've helped, or anybody who's a professional. I'm going to tell those types of stories. I go to the busy mom things. I'm going to search through all of my testimonials from busy moms. I'm only going to tell those stories. And hopefully that you're able to do that because you have so many. And that way it just feels like, man, that guy was talking right to me. And then you've nailed it.
Love that. 100%. There is this point of communication where it's like a hook point, when you're talking on video or an audience, and you just feel that connection, like that calibration, you just flow from right there. And it's super important to admit the elephant in the room. Like, hey, listen, I'm not a mom, but here's why I could help you. And here's some other people who have had similar situations, and then boom, right there.
Yeah. And then the great thing about speaking in front of an audience is you can see how they're responding to stuff, and then you can do an audible if you need to.
Absolutely. So I'm going to switch gears right now and talking about big vision, big legacy. I mean, you've accomplished so much at a young age, and there's many more years of creation. But if you were to look forward and just think about yourself being where you are right now in this present moment, who does Craig Ballantyne want to be remembered for?
Definitely helping. So I like to say it like this, is we have a very strong mission in our business, and we say we want to help 100 million people transform their lives physically, financially, mentally, and emotionally, which gives us a nice broad range. But I have about a total of 8 million views on my YouTube channel. I want to speak in front of people. I want to sell more books. I want to help other people build big companies so that they can help millions of people. And so it's just really about how many people can I help. And I think one of the coolest things that I've been able to do, and I'm obviously been around for a while, is that a lot of people say, you were the person who's a lot of successful people like Joel. I was his first coach, and a lot of people like Greg O'Gallagher who's a body guy. He's very young man who's very successful. He's like, I bought your turbulence training thing back in when he was 18. Or somebody else who says, yours was the first book that I bought in personal development. You were the first guy I heard about, waking up early or whatever it is. And I just really like it when I'm the gateway drug to success for people. And so I want to continue to be that. And whether whether it is through creating new programs and reinventing what I'm an expert at, finding new ways to use things that everybody else is using. Because essentially that was turbulence training, right? Like everybody's working out, but they're working out generally wrong. And I wasn't the first voice to say you got to do intervals and metabolic resistance training, but one of the first back in 1999. And then, it caught on, and that's cool. So I moved on. And then same with Instagram, like everybody's using it a certain way, but I thought there was a different way to use it better. So I'm fortunate about that. And then the perfect day formula, there's been all sorts of time management books out there, but I kind of combined everything into this like perfect day funnel that allowed people to like simplify. It's like, oh, this is just so obvious. A perfect week formula is going to be my next book after the Unstoppable one. And then I've got another one probably planned for that one called The Operator Mindset, which you and I talked about a little bit here today. And then I covered a little bit of that at Vince's Mastermind. And it's a mindset thing that I'm seeing in the most successful people. And it's something that anybody can transfer to their mindset so that they don't get off track in any situation. So I'm really excited to get that one out after the perfect week formula. So that'd be 2020 for that book.
I love that. Love that. I would love to touch upon that. And it's just what you said. I want to reiterate that because that's like such a powerful like philosophy, right? Because it is like, health, wealth, relationships, happiness. Those are the big four markets. And if someone wants to make a major impact, it's like, what's working really well? How can I add my own unique spin to it, as opposed to reinventing something that maybe is not even tested to work, So what you've done with productivity, with the perfect day formula, you've allowed to create a blue ocean, right? Because it's like, this is already everything that's out there. Here's my unique twist to it, but it's very effective. It's proven and tested.
Yeah. Just simplify it. Simplify it for people who are busy and just, prove it. Obviously, you want to make sure that you have people using it. So I like to, when I'm doing something, I like to get people beta testing all the stuff that I'm doing and trying things out and saying, hey, is this going to work for you? And then we find some things that hit.
Yes. And let's talk about the operator mindset, and people could understand the distinction with that.
Yeah. So I had a client, this guy, Marcus, who I talked about before with the stand-up comedy. He's a kettlebell expert. And he would go to these seminars where he would teach. And you go to the seminars, you see your buddies, seminar buddies, and you drink too much and you go out late. And then by the time he gets home after the weekend seminar, he gets sick and he goes home and he wants to spend time with his kids, but he can't spend time with his kids because he's sick and tired and exhausted from the weekend. And everybody's done this, right? And I see this so often with business travelers. As soon as they step in the airport, it's all of a sudden they're like an all-inclusive resort in Cancun. They're eating junk they would never eat at home just because they're in an airport, right? And so I said to him, Marcus, you got to have an operator mindset. And I have this operator mindset because I go to like 7 new countries every year. I probably fly 100,000 miles every year. And I used to have this ratty old backpack, and Bedros would give me a hard time. He's like, buddy, buy a new backpack. But I had everything in every pocket was memorized. And so, you could drop me into any city. I knew where my passport was. I never lost anything. I knew where the protein bars were in case I got hungry. I was an operator, like a Navy SEAL being dropped in behind enemy lines. And you could drop me into any seminar and I would be well rested by the end of it. I'd have learned a ton, met a ton of people, dominated, never got off my diet, did my workouts. And, for most people, when they go to a seminar, it's the exact opposite. But I have an operator mindset. I'm not going to a seminar to party. Yeah, I'm going to a seminar to meet people, but I don't have to party and get drunk and, do stupid stuff and get off track and miss my workouts, because that's not what an operator does. An operator, not like a phone operator, but like a Navy SEAL operator. They're dropped behind enemy lines. They have a mission objective. They don't get off track. Nothing stops them. Nothing is more important than the mission objective. And just have preparation and you have routines and you don't get off track, you're going to go home and you're not going to be sick when you want to go home and play with your kids when you get on after the trip. So an operator, the very first thing I do when I go to any city is I go to a grocery store. I don't go to the hotel first. I don't go anywhere. I go to the grocery store. And then from there, I go to the hotel and I set up my room as well as it can be replicated from my home office. And then I can go to the seminar or go to meet somebody for dinner. But all that preparation is done first. It takes you maybe an hour, but you are set up.
Absolutely, absolutely. And what one thing that came to mind when we were talking about operator Navy SEAL was David Goggins.
Oh
And
yeah.
huge fan of his work. I've been following him for a few years now. And that guy lives like an operator, everything that he does. And I just enjoy listening to his interviews, his podcast, just because his mentality towards life, towards everything that he does.
Yeah. It's funny that you mentioned his name because I'm going to aim for having him as my main speaker for next year at my big event. So this year we had Tim Grover, who was the personal trainer for Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant.
Relentless.
And I was thinking like, man, how do you get somebody to follow up Tim Grover? He rocked the stage. And I thought, I've heard a couple people say this. They've talked to David Goggins and he's great. And obviously Jesse Itzler wrote the book about him. So I'm like, okay, let's double check and see if he's a good speaker and bring him on stage to bring the thunder. So I think that is my plan for 2019.
Dude, I'm there.
Stand-up comedy and David Goggins. You better be there.
Yeah, stand-up comedy and David Goggins, man. That's a great combination. Awesome. This has been phenomenal. Of course, I want to respect your time, everyone that's listening. Well, one last question. This is just based on the flow of everything.
Yeah.
We talk about so many great things and a lot of great stuff came up, but I was curious if there's something I did not ask you that I should have asked you.
I kind of like it when, people ask me like, what would you have said to your younger self? Or, like, what do you think are the most important things in life? So, you can choose anything there, or, like the classic, what would your last meal be? Anything you want to throw at me.
All right. So this is the Online SuperCoach podcast, and I'm fascinated with people's superpowers. But if you could have any superpower, what would it be and why?
Okay, so I'll answer this two ways. First of all, I tell people that I do have a superpower that and it's the lamest superhero ever, but I'm the chess master. And the chess master means that I can take AJ and move him to the winning position in the game of AJ's life. So that's what I do at my workshops, and in the Unstoppable book, you'll see how I do it. And it's because I've done the Strength Finders test, and if anybody's done that, they know that you get ranked on 34 different categories and they tell you your top 5. And if you've never done it before, it's actually pretty helpful. And so my top ones are strategy, execution, futuristic thinking, and vision creation. And I'm way off the charts. So I can see pretty much anybody that I meet, I can see their future once I know a little bit about them, as long as they're willing to do the work that I tell them to do. But I was also blessed with a lot of flaws that I had to overcome. And I helped a lot of people with weight loss transformation. So I've seen what are the shortcuts to success. So you combine my gifts and my flaws and I become the chess master. So that's what I really am. Now, if I was given one superpower, man, I don't know. I don't know. I like them all.
You could freeze time, be invisible. So many things to choose from.
Like I watched the Doctor Strange movie and I liked this movie. I liked this movie more than I thought, but I just didn't understand how all of these things, like, this is going to sound stupid, but those superpowers were so unrealistic. Like Spider-Man's are like his web sling and stuff. I can get that. That's realistic. So I'm going to go with Spider-Man's web sling and stuff, which is like super dumb, but that'd be pretty cool if you could do that.
Well, hey, I mean, that's pretty impressive to swing off buildings and
just be walking down the street, man. Like, hey, you know what? I can swing off anything right now.
Hell yeah. Awesome. And that's fascinating. You're going to have that whole process in your book, Unstoppable. When's that coming out?
January 21st. We're going to push it really hard to hit some bestseller lists.
Awesome. I'll be getting a bunch of copies for myself and my students.
Appreciate it.
And I know because everything you put out is so high quality. So I know that's going to be a game changer.
Thank you, my man. Well, you just remember that when you see me do stand-up comedy. So we'll see. We'll see how high quality my stand-up comedy is.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, the karaoke wasn't too bad. I saw the replay of that. So you got a decent voice there.
Thank you, man.
If people wanted to get more into your world, work with you, come to one of your retreats, where's the best place for them to go?
Hit me up on Instagram at Real Craig Ballantyne. And, if this goes out before my book launches, go to beunstoppable.book.com, get on the pre-order list there. And then, you know what? I like old school email. So if you ever want to just email me at craig@godfather.com.
Got it. I'll add all those to the show notes. And yeah, this will be going up very soon. This is a phenomenal interview next week or so. So they get on the waiting list, get that book, hit you up, slide up in your DMs. And yes.
See me do some social story selling.
Yes, he's a king at it.
Oh, yeah. So go to socialstorysellingssystem.com if you want to get the Instagram course too.
Yeah, I'll definitely add that. That's phenomenal and something I highly recommend to take your IG game to the next level. Craig, thank you for being on here. I appreciate your time, your generosity, all the value, and I appreciate you.
All right. See you soon, man.